Okay, good morning. Lieutenant Governor Reynolds is in Israel with the Republican Lieutenant Governors Association delegation that is meeting with Israeli government officials and also discussing economic and business opportunities for the state of Iowa. A lot of these meetings that she'll be having in Israel are a follow-up to the Des Moines Partnership meetings that were conducted in Israel in 2015, focusing on the cultivation corridor and biosciences. As many of you know, I am a proud student of history, and especially of Iowa history. I love to read the Iowa History Journal and various books about historical figures and events in our state's history. When I became the longest serving governor in American history back on December 14th, I wanted to think of a way that I could give back and help the state that I love and preserve our history for the benefit of future generations. So back in December, we created the Governor Branstad Iowa History Fund as a nonprofit organization to promote Iowa history for the benefit of future generations. The Iowa History Fund is financed from private contributions. The event we had on December 14th and also the sale of the book that was written by Mike Chapman, and here's copies of the book that are available. The Iowa History Fund has a board of 3 members that review and ultimately decide what projects will be funded. Including the 3 members include the Director of Cultural Affairs, Mary County, who's with us, John Busby, owner and president of Culture Buzz, who's also with us, and Jeff Kaufman, who is chair of the History Department of Muscatine Community College, also the Republican state chairman, former legislator. He could not join us today. Today, I'm pleased to announce that the Iowa History Fund board members have approved a $6,500 contribution for the first project. The $6,500 is awarded today to Patriot Outreach, and it is going to be used for the restoration of the Iowa Governor Samuel Merrill Mausoleum, which is located in Woodland Cemetery here in Des Moines. Governor Merrill was a Civil War veteran who also served as the 7th governor of the state of Iowa from 1868 to 1872. Governor Merrill's tomb has been damaged from decades of neglect and a falling oak tree. The organization will be restoring the mausoleum while protecting and keeping as much of the original as possible. I want to commend Patriot Outreach for their efforts to restore the memory of one of Iowa's outstanding governors who made huge sacrifice in preserving the Union and then leading our state during a critical time of our state's history. This is exactly the type of history project that we want to help and promote through the Iowa History Fund. In fact, the Governor Merrill project, my wife and I already have personally contributed $1,000, as have many other Iowa citizens. So this 6,500 is really designed to complete the fundraising, the private fundraising for this project. Groups who wish to apply for funding from the Iowa History Fund should go to the website www.iowahistoryfund.org for details and instructions on how to apply. It's fairly simple. There's a 1-page form I think that we have available, and I think there's a need to have maybe a 1-page explanation along with that, and then it goes before this 3-member board for consideration. We're not looking at huge contributions or grants, but probably $10,000 or less but we hope to help many projects throughout the state. I think there's $194,000 in the fund as of now, and as more books are sold, there'll be more funds available. So at this time, I'd like to ask Jonas Cutler of Patriot Outreach Incorporated to speak about this project. He has been very passionate and has really led this effort and has done a phenomenal job in we're just kind of helping him finish the job. So Jonas?
Thank you. We're extremely excited to have this opportunity to talk about this project in Samuel Merrill today. You see, this project really follows the example of Samuel Merrill set for us and will serve as a visual reminder for future generations of Iowans to act when the need arises rather than wait for somebody else to do it. When the shots were fired at Fort Sumter and President Lincoln called the states to arms, Samuel Merrill acted. Governor Kirkwood raised the alarm for Iowans to prepare for the coming war. Samuel Merrill answered. Running a dry goods store in McGregor, Iowa, Samuel Merrill funded the uniforms for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd volunteer regiments. Those men that fought at Wilson Creek were wearing Merrill uniforms. A year later, Samuel Merrill was commissioned a colonel and led the Iowa 21st Volunteer Regiment on the Vicksburg campaign. He was shot leading the charge at the Battle of Black River Bridge, critically wounded. After recovering from the near mortal wounds and the end of the war, he again answered Iowa's call, becoming our 7th governor and first post-war governor during the time of national healing. For his wounds at the Battle of Black River Bridge, Samuel Merrill was awarded a pension in 1887. Seeing a need, he again acted, right, donating 100% of those pension funds to maintain 3 hospital beds here in Des Moines, recognizing the fact that not all war wounds manifested or completed on the battlefield, but instead linger on. We came to this project because Senator Dennis Black raised the alarm. He called the state and our attention to the dilapidated condition of the final resting place of Samuel Merrill. After a century of neglect and a falling oak tree, the mausoleum became home to possums and raccoons rather than the hallowed ground of an Iowan hero. Upon inspecting the damage, it became clear that we were at risk losing this monument forever. Dozens and dozens and dozens of Iowans acted, each contributing what they could. For some, it was financial. We received donations, in $5, $10, $100, and some, much, much more. Others donated their time and their talent. I like to talk about Valerie in Jefferson, Iowa. She's a genealogist. And she contributed, she worked hours and hours and hours going through the genealogical of these historical records. You see, in order to get the work permit to perform the services that we did, we had to demonstrate that there were no living relatives left, right? She emailed me late at night one time in complete frustration saying, Jonas, I can't find any living relatives. We were able to go in and take care of things at that point. Westbrook Construction, a firm specializing in historical buildings, has acted, right? They've worked with us throughout the entirety of this project. Kevin Conway, Mark over here, they've worked with us throughout the whole process, bidding this project at cost and quite often below cost, right? As the funding, as we work through funding and delays and what have you, Westbrook Construction, Kevin Conway, Mark never walked away from this project, but instead remained committed to finishing this project and finishing it right. In order to get here today, CEOs of 3 Iowa publicly traded companies have contributed their personal funds. Congressmen, state legislators, and yes, even Iowa's longest serving governor acted, donating their personal money rather than reaching into the public purse. This donation from the Governor of Branstad Iowa History Fund today will ensure that we are able to properly restore this monument for generations to come, for Iowans to learn from and reflect our Iowa tradition of taking action when we can. We want to thank the 3 members of the board of the Governor Branstad Iowa History Fund, Jeff Kaufman, Mary County, and John Busby, for the generous donation today. Samuel Merrill said it best in his farewell address in 1872. As I pass from one station to the other, permit me to unite with you in dedicating ourselves, our commonwealth, and our country to freedom anew. I'd like to add to acting when we are able to. Thank you.
Okay, here's the check.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
We would open it to your questions on this subject,
I
yes.
just want to clarify, didn't you veto state money?
Yes, yes, I did,
$100,000?
yes.
What's the total project cost?
The total value of the project is going to be about $50,000. We were enabled to, by acting through private donations and through voluntary contributions, we're able to continue do this with much less funding. So, for example, I talk about Valerie, who acted for free, right? She volunteered her time to go through and do this. There's a lot of the legal actions that were undertaken in order to obtain the permitting requirements. There's, people were able to contribute their time, talent, and their treasure to this, thereby bringing the cost, the actual dollar outlay way down, and making it so that the taxpayer is paying zero.
So when's this gonna be done? Or
This will be this will be done here in shortly. We're expecting to have it done before June.
I would also say that, I think this is very consistent with what Governor Merrill wanted and what he would have done. You heard how he personally contributed the uniforms for the Iowa troops, and that he personally contributed 100% of the pension he received to help others that had wounds from the war. That's the kind of person he was, and I think he'd be very proud to know that all of the proceeds for this restoration project have been donated from private sources of people that really want to preserve the history and heritage that he was so instrumental in establishing in our state.
You mentioned how much is in the total fund? In total, Iowa History Fund right now?
Well, it's $194,000.
How did you decide the 6,500?
That's how much was needed to finish it. Is that right?
That's correct. We'll be able to finish it now. Like I say, we've collected donations from various private individuals. This is kind of the remainder that was necessary to pay the bills. But again, I'd like to emphasize the fact that Westbrook Construction has been very instrumental with us, again, bidding this at or below cost. These gentlemen are out there working diligently, doing it correctly, making nothing out of it, I'm sure.
Of all the things that this money could have gone for, why was Governor Merrill mausoleum first?
Well, I became aware of this through Jonas, and I was impressed with the fact that he was so passionate that he was donating his time and putting together this tremendous private effort. And we found out that they were close to reaching the goal, and that would only take $6,500 to complete it. And so we thought, here's this Civil War hero who served as our governor, who gave so much. What a great way to start this fund, is to support the restoration of his mausoleum here in Woodland Cemetery.
So the total 194,000, that's just from sales from the book.
Well, it's a good share of it came from the fundraising event that we had on the 14th of December at the state fairgrounds. So we had individual tickets sold to that, and also groups and organizations that sponsored it.
Is there a portion of this money from book sales that goes
Yeah, and then the book sale, all of the book sales. I said when we started this project that I wanted to donate all the proceeds from the book sales. So there's still a lot more books that are available, and I'm going to be going around the state and doing book signings, and the proceeds from all the book sales. So the 194,000 is what it is today. Hopefully that'll grow as we have book sales, and we've had some other people have just stepped forward and say I want to contribute to this fund. So people can contribute to this fund. It's a tax deductible charitable contribution, or they can buy a book, and a share of that, over and above the cost of actually producing the book, all of that goes into this.
Is there a timetable for how the money is dispersed? It's been a few months since the
Right.
fundraiser in December. What's
Well, we had to pay the bills from the event that was held at the state fair. And Margaret Huff, my executive assistant, has worked and helped with this. And then we put together this committee and John Busby and our director of Department of Cultural Affairs, Mary County, are on, along with Jeff Kaufman. And so as applications come in, they will review them and make decisions as to what other projects we will support. But I've already heard from several people around the state of Iowa that have worthy projects they'd like to see supported. So in the months ahead, I'm hopeful we'll be able to announce many other projects that we're supporting. And again, you know, we're not able to give a big contribution, but we hope that it will be a boost and maybe help with the other private fundraising that's going on. I would also point out during the time that I've been governor, we have built a Vietnam memorial. We've built a Korean memorial. We built a World War II memorial and a memorial to the Pearl Harbor here in the Capitol complex. So we've done a number of historical projects previously, and I see the book sales as just being another way for us to continue to support important and significant historical recognitions throughout the state.
And but have there been any other applications?
We are just, this was the first, and the applications are now available, and so we've just announced it publicly. I've had people tell me they're interested, but I assume we'll get several more in the near future. Yes.
So the Patriot Outreach, is this historical organization or just like a conservative advocacy group?
No, it's a 50.
Same format as the Patriot Voice.
No, it's a 501c3 organization. The primary function is recognizing the fact and serving those other veterans. We're very concerned about veteran suicide and means of ensuring that we take care of people with post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, this recognizes the fact that we take care of our own here. Samuel Merrill, provided a good example of that through, voluntarily, donating those hospital beds with his pension. Patriot Outreach is following that into the next one. It's a national organization.
Are you a veteran?
Yes, I am. I'm a Marine vet.
How many books have you sold? And how many is that not included?
Well, I don't know. We've sold a couple thousand, I think. A ticket. And there were 1,300 tickets sold to that. They all got a book.
I'd like one. Governor.
Yeah. Well, we'll get one.
Absolutely.
You'll get one. And other questions on this subject first?
Going to have to exhume the body.
You want to maintain the integrity of the item you're restoring as much as possible. And in doing so, we're able to determine there was no need to exhume or remove Governor Merrill anyway.
Do you want to tell about his wife?
We can talk about that now if you'd like to.
Yeah, that's
A couple months ago, I received an email from a gentleman in California who asked me, is there anybody else in Samuel Merrill's tomb? I'm looking for Samuel Merrill's wife, right, Elizabeth. And I said, well, no, Woodland Cemetery records only reflect one person being in there, that being Samuel Merrill, right? When we were able to go in and examine the damage that was occurring to this monument, again, I emphasize the fact it was damaged. We were able to take a look in there and determine the fact that Samuel Merrill was not alone, right? And that Elizabeth was in there with him. And in doing so, we're going to be able to correct the historical record. I think this is a fantastic opportunity here, and it shows that we're able to kind of go in and do things and take care of things and correct the history where it needs to be. Is there any questions I can answer? I love to talk about this. Hey, how you doing? What's that? Dave, right? It's Dave, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Dave.
We went in there. We're in there. The mausoleum is there's essentially two rooms to this mausoleum. So you have the doorway, and if you go into the first story, there's a room, right? And then there's a wall there, right? And the wall there had a big piece of marble, and there was a gate on that, right? And again, we had to look to make sure that there was not extensive damage. We need to go through and do these works. And again, like removing Samuel Merrill, put him somewhere else for the time where we constructed this. We were able to be able to open that door to some degree and inspect the damage. And in there's two placements, right? And it's stonework overward, and the names are inscribed on marble that's outside of each one. And it's an exciting thing. It's an exciting thing.
When was the last time somebody was in there?
A week ago.
No, other than.
Whenever they sealed the door, if you go and you can take a look at this, you see right here that the door has been sealed shut, and that's the nature of that is to maintain the security of the monument, which is necessary. So it'd be the last time somebody had gone through that door. You can see the damage here, right? And so anybody that made, entry into there, we didn't find any, because that's one thing we were looking for. Was there any vandals that had been in there? Was there anything else going on there? We weren't able to find, any kind of indication of vandalism that occurred, which is fortunate because we were able to repair it at a little, lesser cost. Say again? Elizabeth? I'd have to look at that.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, we can look at the picture here. Is there any other questions? I can answer. This is something we would love to talk about. This is something we've done well. We're very proud of our efforts here. And
Well, you can see Jonas is really passionate about this and really passionate about Iowa history. And we think this is just a great project to be the first one to receive funding from this Governor Branstad Iowa History.
I live in West Des Moines. My daughter Ariana is behind here. My other daughter Keisha's over here.
How often is the group meet to go over the application?
Basically, when they get an application. So, they've only met once, and I think it was done by phone, right? This time, or met here. Okay. But, as the nice thing is it's a relatively small group, and they can be called together at any time, basically. And they're all people that have a real passion for Iowa history also. Other questions? Okay, we'll take questions on other subjects this morning as well.
Kevin, what's your reaction to the fact that Cruise campaign was able to get almost all of the national delegates at the convention?
Well, they were very well organized, and this is not just true in Iowa, but I think you probably know through the media that this happened in Colorado and it's happened in some other states as well. I was pleased that 12 of the 16 members of the State Central Committee were reelected. 2 years ago, we had a lot of new people elected. They got the state party back in a good financial health, and they helped work for all the candidates. And we had a tremendously successful election in 2014, electing a lot of Republicans, Senator Ernst, 3 of the 4 congressmen, obviously the governor, lieutenant governor, and a lot of the state officials and legislators. We think we have a great opportunity again to elect more Republicans to the legislature, maintaining the majority in the House, getting a majority in the Senate, and helping our Republican congressional candidates as well as Senator Grassley. So I'm encouraged about the turnout and the participation and the fact that Republicans are very committed to electing Republicans, and our party is in a strong and healthy financial and organizational position going into this election.
You're still planning on trying to be a delegate out of the state.
I hope to be, yes.
And what will you tell the delegates about what you'll do at convention, should it be a contested convention?
Well, first of all, I think we are required on the first ballot to vote according to the Iowa precinct caucuses. I was very proud of the turnout at the caucuses, and so I certainly intend to abide by that. And then on the second ballot, if indeed it goes to a second ballot, I intend to wait and see and find out how we in the state of Iowa can play a role in choosing the strongest possible candidate to be the next president.
The folks on Saturday who said that didn't get elected delegates. The delegates wanted to know who they would support on the second round. Are you willing to tell people at the state convention in order to be elected a delegate who you'll support in the second round of voting?
Well, let's wait till the state convention before we make that decision. I guess my feeling is I've been around in this business for a long time, and I'm respectful of the process that we go through, and I intend to work with the with the delegates, and I'll wait until we get to the convention to answer that question. But first of all, we'll have to see if I'm nominated, if I'm nominated, and I'll get that opportunity, I'll be glad to share my candid opinion. But I'm a loyal Republican, and I will work. And I was at the last contested convention, 76 in Kansas City, as an alternate, supporting Ronald Reagan. We didn't win. We came close, but we all supported Gerald Ford, who was the nominee after it was over.
Mr. Trump said this system is rigged. Do you agree?
Well, I think both Donald Trump and also Senator Sanders are very concerned about the way delegates are being apportioned. On the Democratic side, they have something they call super delegates, which basically gives the establishment, the elected officials, a significant share of delegates without regard to how the people voted in the caucuses or in the primaries. And, interestingly enough, the super delegates were created after the Democrats had a very contentious convention in 1968, where they felt that the party bosses basically controlled things. Well, this reduced the influence of the party bosses, but I think the system has evolved to the point now where more and more people think the process ought to be more democratic. And there's even questions on the Democratic side as to whether this 15% viability, which they use and which skews the results of the Iowa caucuses, whether that's fair. And I think they have a group that's now looking at that here in Iowa. And on the Republican side, I think more and more, and one of the reasons why Iowa is now on the first ballot going to vote according to the way the people voted at the caucuses is the idea that the system has changed. It used to be they didn't have a lot of primaries, and the delegates would select the nominee, and so oftentimes it would go many ballots to do that. They used to even nominate governors that way. In fact, to go back to the Governor Kirkwood, who was the Civil War governor, he was elected twice during the Civil War, and then 12 years later, they had a contested convention. They weren't satisfied with the nominee, and they got on the train here in Des Moines. They went to Iowa City, and they asked him, "Would you run another time?" And he agreed to, and he came back, and he was elected a third term, I think 12 years later. He's the only other non-consecutive governor other than myself. So I've kind of studied that in history. So, but it's evolved. The process has evolved to the point where now I think the public more and more feels that it needs to be democratic with a small d, so that it really reflects the will of the people that participate and vote in caucuses and primaries. And I believe that the parties need to modernize and adjust their rules as time goes on. But we have to live by the rules that are in place now. And then I think future conventions will probably need to look at a more democratic system.
If you leave it though, why won't the delegate and not leave it for someone else who's not an elected official to have the opportunity?
Well, one of the things I'm interested in is Iowa and what we can do to protect Iowa's interest. And one of my big concerns is the fact that under this administration, our nation is $19 trillion in debt. We don't have the leadership to protect the safety of our citizens, and the forces of evil are on the march everywhere from ISIS and the Islamic militants to Russia and North Korea and Iran. And so I want to play a role in trying to choose a leader that's going to address those issues, plus agriculture and farm income. We've had 3 years in a row where farm income has declined. Land values in this state have dropped 23% in the last 3 years. It's estimated we're going to see another reduction this year. I was governor during the farm crisis, so I've learned a lot through that period and experience. And I think we need to have, and that's where I think I might be able to play a role in our delegation of visiting with the candidates and finding out who will be the strongest to restore respect for America internationally and protect the safety of our citizens, restore our fiscal integrity as a nation, and restore profitability for agriculture.
Governor, we're heading into a home stretch. What are your priorities for these final days?
Water quality is my top priority. I understand the House is about ready to debate that bill this year, today. We've been working with them all session on this. It has passed through both the Ways and Means and Appropriations Committees with strong bipartisan vote. I'm hopeful that will be approved and that the Senate will also approve it. We need to begin now to take action to protect the quality of Iowa's water. And this is an important and significant first step.
Democrats have indicated that they're going to introduce their own water quality proposal this week. I'm curious if that.
I'm curious to know what it is.
I mean, does that indicate that there may not be consensus in time to finish?
Well, I think it's encouraging that I brought the issue of water quality up as a top priority and that we've now worked through the point where it's going to pass the House and Senate. Democrats are now saying, yes, we want to address it as well. So we should get this done this year. We should get this done this year. And I'm encouraged that they're going to, they want to address it. So I think we ought to get it done. We're willing to stay and work with them as long as necessary to get it done because it is an important priority for the citizens of the state.
Legislative leaders have, at least on the House side, have indicated they really want to try to finish on time. Is this something that is so important that if we need to stay past the adjournment, we will?
Well, first of all, as you know, per diem expenses are cut off, but there's no hard adjournment date. There never has been in Iowa. And we've had some years they've gone way beyond the per diem cutoff, and sometimes they've done it within a matter of days of that. But I think most important is what gets accomplished. I am encouraged that they have now agreed upon joint budget targets. We are working with them to see that those get resolved. We said from the very beginning, even starting last summer, that this is going to be a tough budgeting year because we could see that with the bird flu and with farm income. And the result was, I made some strategic vetoes last year to keep us in a strong financial position. We've abided by the spending limitations that have been around since the 1980s. And I'm encouraged the legislature has agreed that we're not going to use budget gimmicks. We're not going to use one-time money, but we're going to abide by those spending limits. And we know those are difficult and that makes for tough decisions. But it looks like we're well on our way to getting that accomplished. We also think that water quality is an important issue and that the House approach makes a lot of sense. And it's something that we think is sustainable, at least between now and 2029. And I think we can do more beyond that.
Richard, last question.
Governors, several other states have banned interaction. State legislation to obtain. Would you recommend Iowa follow those footsteps in the reaction to that?
Well, I'm not familiar with the specifics of what's been going on in those other states. And as you know, our legislature is about ready to adjourn. So I always reserve judgment until I see any bill in its final form. We have nothing on that subject here before the Iowa legislature.
Real quickly, then we get. Governor, some places like Roseville High School installed the transgender staff, and there's been a lot of concern about addressing youth with transgender people. Should the Iowa Capitol have a transgender resident?
Well, I guess I have not had anybody ask me about that previously, and so that's not something that really is on the radar screen at this point.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.